Let's raise a glass. My sister-in-law, Stefana, announced. Her voice cut through the polite chatter of the high-end restaurant brunch. Everyone turned. Stephanie, 34 and a failed lifestyle influencer, was in her element. She held up a champagne flute, her smile dripping with fake sweetness. To Jessica, she said, locking eyes with me, for trying so hard to fit in. A few people chuckled nervously. She walked over and handed me a different glass. A vibrant orange mocktail. This one's special. Just for you. I smiled, trying to be a good sport. I took a sip. It wasn't orange juice. It was the unmistakable burn of straight vodka. Hot and sharp. Searing my throat. I gagged, spitting the liquid back into the glass, my eyes watering instantly, and then, the sound I'll never forget: laughter. Stephanie and her friends were roaring. That's just a little vodka. Jessica. Stephanie tackled. You need to relax. My heart hammered against my ribs. I just stared at them. The whole room spinning. Have you ever been publicly humiliated by someone who was supposed to be family? Tell me your story in the comments. I didn't say a word. I didn't throw the drink. I didn't cry. Not yet. I just ran. I pushed my chair back, the sound scraping across the marble floor, and I fled, past the table of laughing faces, past the confused looks from my in-laws, straight toward the women's restroom. I slammed into the heavy door, fumbled with the lock on a stall, and collapsed onto the floor. The cold tile was the only thing that felt real. My chest was collapsing. I couldn't breathe. The smell of the vodka, that sharp, burning taste. It wasn't just a prank. It was my parents' screaming matches at 2 a.m. It was the sound of a bottle smashing against the wall. It was every broken promise, every night spent hiding, every reason I fought to build a different life. I was gasping, trying to pull air into my lungs. But the panic was a physical weight, pressing down on me. I wasn't a 28-year-old woman in a restaurant. I was 8 years old, hiding in a closet. A few minutes passed. Maybe it was 10. I heard a soft knock on the main restroom door. Jess, are you in there? It's Michael. His voice. It cut through the static. I hauled myself up, unlocked the stall, and stumbled to the sink. When I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized the person staring back. My face was pale, streaked with tears. I didn't even know I'd shed. My eyes wide with a terror I thought I'd left behind. He pushed the door open, saw me, and his face changed. The confusion and concern just vanished, replaced by a cold, quiet anger I had never, ever seen in him. He didn't ask, what's wrong? He didn't ask, did she do something? He just knew. He walked over, grabbed a paper towel, wet it with cold water, and gently started dabbing the mascara from under my eyes. He didn't say a word. He just took my hand, his grip firm and steady. We're leaving, he said. It wasn't a question. It was a statement. He put his arm around my shoulder and walked me out. The whole room went silent. Stephanie was mid-laugh about something else, but it died on her lips when she saw us. My father-in-law, David, looked utterly horrified. My mother-in-law, Mary, had her hand over her mouth. Michael didn't look at any of them. He just walked me straight toward the exit. Mikey, Stephanie called out, her voice suddenly high and nervous. Where are you going? The party's not over. She's just being dramatic. Michael stopped. He didn't turn around, but he pulled me just a little closer. His voice was low, and it cut through the silence of that restaurant like a knife. Yes, it is. Stephanie. That was the first retaliation. It wasn't mine. It was his. An immediate, decisive, non-negotiable wall of protection. And as the heavy restaurant door closed behind us, I finally took my first real breath. The drive home was silent. Not an angry silence. Not an awkward one. It was a heavy, processing silence. Michael drove with one hand on the wheel, the other holding mine on the center console. He didn't ask questions. He didn't say, "I can't believe she did that." He just held my hand. He was letting me land. I just stared out the window, watching the world go by, feeling completely detached from my own body. The shock was wearing off, and the deep, familiar ache was settling in. We got home. We walked inside our quiet, safe house. Michael hung up his keys. I took off my shoes. And the second my feet touched the floor of the home I had built, the home I had fought for, the dam broke. I didn't just cry. I collapsed. I slid down the wall in our entryway and just shattered. All the strength, all the composure, all the years of "I'm fine" just evaporated. Michael was there in a second, on the floor with me, pulling me into his arms. He didn't shush me. He just held me while I hyperventilated. Snot and tears. The ugly, necessary breakdown that had been waiting in the wings since I was 19. It wasn't just a drink. I finally choked out, my face buried in his shirt. "I know," he whispered. "I know. Jess. She knows I don't drink. She knows. It's not a preference for me." I pulled back, needing him to see me, needing to say the words out loud. "She doesn't know the details." Michael. "Not really. She doesn't know about the screaming matches at 2 a.m. She doesn't know about being 8 years old and finding my mom passed out in the hallway. Or my dad. Just gone for days. She wasn't there when I was 19. Sitting in a family court office, proving to a judge I was more of an adult than my own parents. Just so I could get custody of Ethan. Just to save him from that. I took a ragged breath. This house. This life. It's not just a life. Michael. It's a sanctuary. It's my life's mission. I am the cycle breaker. I am the one who stops the poison. And she just walked into my sanctuary and, for a laugh, she poured that poison right back down my throat. I wiped my face, the anger now mixing with the hurt. And the worst part, I said, my voice dropping to a whisper, the stupidest, most broken part of me is that I feel guilty. Michael's grip tightened. "What guilty?" "I feel guilty," I confessed, the words tasting like ash. "I feel guilty for reacting, for ruining the brunch, for making you leave, for causing a scene." I looked at him. "Desperate. I know it makes no sense. My therapist calls it reactive guilt. It's that old instinct. You don't feel guilty because you did something wrong. You feel guilty because you reacted to being treated wrong. And that reaction, it broke the peace. Even if it was a fake, horrible peace. I hate that I made this a thing." Michael just looked at me for a long moment, his eyes searching mine. "Jessica," he said, his voice firm. "You didn't make this a thing. She did. You didn't break the peace. You just showed everyone the truth. There was no peace to break." 2 days passed. I had an emergency session with my therapist, who was incredible. She helped me re-ground myself, reminding me that my reaction was not an overreaction, it was a trauma reaction. And it was valid. She encouraged me to try and communicate with Stephanie. Not for Stephanie's sake, but for my own. So I could set a firm, adult boundary. So I did. I spent 20 minutes crafting the most neutral, mature text message I could. "He's Stefania. I think we should talk about what happened at brunch." I'd like to explain why it affected me so much. I hit send. I watched the little delivered receipt. 5 minutes later. It changed. Read. And then. Nothing. I waited all day. Nothing. The entire next day. Just silence. That silence was somehow louder and more violent than her laughter had been. It was a confirmation. She wasn't sorry. She didn't think she'd done anything wrong. She was ignoring me, hoping I'd just get over it. That evening, Michael's parents, David and Mary, called us. They didn't just sound upset, they sounded mortified. Jessica, honey, Mary started, her voice trembling a little. We cannot tell you how sorry we are. We spoke to Stephanie. We tried to speak to her. What did she say? Michael asked. His voice flat. There was a heavy sigh on the other end. She said, Jessica is just being too sensitive. David Kudin. She said it was just a joke, and she doesn't understand what the big deal is. She was completely, utterly defensive. We're just ashamed. Jessica, we are so ashamed. Hearing their genuine horror made me feel validated, but also sad. Sad that their own daughter was this person. After we hung up, I sat on the sofa, just staring at the wall. Michael came and sat next to me. This isn't about you, Jess, he said quietly. I know. It's just. No, I mean it, he said, turning to face me. This really isn't about you. It's about her. He leaned forward. This is the black sheep projection. My therapist used to talk about it. What do you mean? Think about it, he said. Who is the real black sheep in our family? It's Stephanie. You're a successful graphic designer. You own your own business. You rescued your brother, and you're raising an amazing kid. You've built a life. You are the one Mom and Dad are. Honestly, Jess, they're more proud of you than they are of her. It continued, the pieces clicking into place. Stephanie, she's 34. Her influencer career is a joke. She's drowning in credit card debt trying to look successful. Mom and Dad are constantly bailing her out. She is the failure. She is the outsider. And you, the orphan you called yourself. You came into this family, and you won. You have the stability she craves. You have the respect from our parents that she's lost. He took my hand. So she had to project. She had to make you the outsider. She had to make you the charity case, to make herself feel better. That joke, that wasn't a prank. Jess, that was an attack. Michael's analysis hung in the air, and it felt right. It felt truer than anything I'd been able to put together. The next day, David and Mary came over to our house. They didn't call first. They just showed up, which was unusual. I opened the door, and Mary's eyes were red. David looked exhausted. But resolute, we're not here to ask you to make peace. Jessica, David said, stepping inside, we're not here to ask you to forgive her. We're here to choose our side. We sat in the living room, the same room where I'd broken down just days before. We spoke to her again. Mary said, her voice hollow. We gave her one more chance to show anything, remorse, understanding, even just basic human decency. And she just doubled down. She said we were coddling you. She said you were manipulating us. She is not the person we raised. Actions have consequences. Jessica, David said, his voice firm. Mary and I have been talking all night. We enabled her for too long. We made excuses. We kept trying to keep the peace, just like you did. And we're done. We've called the family lawyer, Mary said. We've scheduled an emergency meeting for Friday about the family trust. My breath caught. The trust? That was Stephanie's safety net. It was her future. This isn't just family drama anymore. Jessica, David said, this was an assault, and we're handling it as such. I just nodded, not knowing what to say. I was grateful, but my mind was still reeling from the reactive guilt. I was still the one who had broken the family. David must have seen the conflict on my face. He leaned forward, and his next words changed everything. He didn't just sit next to me, he kneeled on the floor in front of me. Taking both of my hands in his, Michael sat beside me, his hand on my back. Jessica? David said, his voice thick with an emotion I'd never heard from him. I need you to listen to me. I need you to really hear this. It looked right into my eyes. Mary and I. We may have given birth to Stephanie. That was biology. That was an accident of nature. But we chose you. Do you understand? We chose you as our family. You are the woman who makes our son happy. You are the woman who saved your brother. You are our daughter. Mary was openly crying now. You are our daughter. David repeated, his grip tightening. And we will not stand by and let anyone, not even our own blood, treat our daughter this way. Never, ever doubt that. I just broke. But it wasn't the brokenness of the brunch. It wasn't the panic of the past. It was a shattering of all the old Aztec toxic rules. All the years of feeling like an outsider, of being the orphan, of wondering if I'd ever truly belong anywhere. It all just washed away. I wasn't the guest. I wasn't the charity case. I wasn't the plus one. I was chosen. I was home. The call came on Friday evening, just after David and Mary's meeting with the family lawyer. It was David. His voice was flat, exhausted. Jessica, Michael, he said, we're done. It's done. And we know why she did it. I sat up straighter. What do you mean? We got the full financial picture from the lawyer. David sighed. Stephanie. She's not just bad with money. She's over $100,000 in debt. Credit cards. Personal loans. Trying to keep up that influencer facade. We had no idea it was that bad. The worst part is, Mary and I, we finally cut off her lifestyle allowance last week. A cold, sick realization washed over me. Last week, I whispered, yes? David said. The brunch was 4 days later. This wasn't just a prank. Jessica, this was a premeditated attack. It was retaliation. She was jealous. Jealous. The word felt too simple, too small, for the kind of vitriol she'd aimed at me. We hung up, and I just sat there, trying to process the motive. It was so pathetic. All that pain, all that humiliation, because she was a failed influencer who couldn't pay her bills. And just as that was sinking in, Michael's phone, which was on the coffee table, lit up, and then it lit up again, and again, and again. A non-stop barrage of text notifications. It's her, Michael said, his voice hard. He picked up the phone. I watched his face as he read. His expression didn't change, but his knuckles went white. He just stood there, scrolling, his jaw tightening. After a long minute, he shut the phone off and just looked at me, his face pale. What is it? I asked. He didn't answer. He just unlocked the phone and handed it to me. The messages were unhinged. They were a torrent of pure Undiluted hatred. Aim at him. You're a weak-willed coward. Letting that little BTH control you. You always were the good one. And look at you now. Married to some piece of trailer trash. She's a gold digger. Mikhail. She's a professional victim. On and on. One after another. Each one more vicious than the last. They were horrible. But they were just angry noise. Until I got to the last one. The one that had apparently been sent just moments before. The one that made Michael go pale. I don't know why you'd marry a charity case. Anyway, you think you're some kind of hero. You're just a fool. Wasting your life. Adopting a bunch of bankrupt orphans. Bankrupt orphans. The words just hung there in the air. That was the line. That was the one that changed everything. It wasn't just an insult. It was a character assassination. It wasn't just aimed at me. It was aimed at my brother. At the family I had saved. That was the point of no return. She hadn't just insulted me. She had passed judgment on my entire life. On the purest thing I had ever done. And in that moment, all my reactive guilt just burned away. It was gone. And all that was left was a cold, hard clarity. She had just signed her own execution warrant. The orphan text was the kill shot. Michael screenshotted the entire conversation and sent it to his parents. This is who she is. We're done. Their reply was immediate. We know. And that was it. The excommunication was absolute. Stephanie was cut from the trust, blocked on every platform, and erased from our lives. It wasn't a fight, it was a clean amputation. A few days later, a frantic hammering shattered our peace. It was Stephanie, but not the curated influencer we knew. She was a desperate woman in stained sweatpants, her face blotchy with tears. They turned off my cards, she shrieked at Michael. My rent is due. You have to tell them to stop. Michael stood like a wall. You did this. Stephanie. Not us. Her wild eyes landed on me. Standing behind him, her face curdled with pure hatred. You, she screamed. You came into my family, and you ruined my life. You foi king orphan. My 12-year-old brother. Ethan gasped from the stairs. But the word, meant as her final weapon, just hung in the air. It had no power. I stepped out from behind Michael. My voice calm. You're wrong. Stephanie, I'm not an orphan. I looked at my husband. At my brother. I have a family. I am surrounded by love. You're the one who's all alone. Her face crumpled. Michael just said, goodbye. And we closed the door, shutting out her screams. 6 months have passed. We don't hear from her. Aside from rumors, she lost her car, her apartment, her entire curated life, our lives. We've never been better. The toxic brunch is gone, replaced by a loving Sunday dinner with David and Mary. For the first time, they look relaxed. The burden they carried for 34 years is gone. My graphic design business has exploded. Michael was promoted. We're thriving. Last month, we officially endowed the Ethan Fund, a scholarship for kids who, like us, had to fight their way out of toxic homes. Stephanie tried to use orphan as a weapon, to shame me, to define me as less than. But she failed. We took her deepest, ugliest insult and turned it into a legacy, a seed of hope. And as I look at my chosen family, I know that is the only laugh that truly matters.